The other thing I want to talk about here is I mentioned questing in the topics that I gave to you, Vex, but this is actually just not really considered questing. It's the hearts. Let's put it like that, is what I mean when I say questing. We want to talk about questing, dynamic events, vistas, and skills, and how does this work? So we're not going to address the main storyline just yet. We're going to talk about what I call zone clearing. So zone clearing, it's like this. You enter a specific zone, and if you're a completionist, like most MMO players are usually, you will want to start doing everything that you possibly can to finish that zone. Now, zones are composed of these things called hearts. Hearts usually involve you performing some kind of activity for an NPC, which would be considered a quest, except there's like multiple objectives as to what you can do. Like you can go pick up items, or to complete the same quest, you can just go and kill stuff. Some certain actions will reward you more than others, but usually there's multiple choices as to what you can do while you're completing these hearts, so to speak. Apart from hearts, there's also going to be these things called vistas, and vistas is actually a good way that they've created in order to show you the beautiful landscape that they crafted. Because basically you have to run around the map to find the vista. Then it's like usually some kind of a jumping puzzle. I mean, sometimes, because other times the vistas are pretty simplistic. Like there's a couple of vistas that's just run up this scaffold, go to the top, activate the vista.
Yeah.
But what it does is once you activate the vista itself, you get this cinematic cutscene that shows you a specific area or a specific statue, a specific section of the zone you're in, and they're usually pretty beautiful to watch, so to say. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep. But if you still don't care, you can skip it.
Yeah, if you don't care about vistas or you don't care about completing the zones, you can pretty much skip it and focus on your main quest and just do enough of these vistas and hearts to get level, because you can't just do your main storyline quest. That's not enough to get you, because at a certain point it will just be too high level. You have to also complete a couple of optional objectives. Now these can be completing a zone, like doing hearts, doing dynamic events, vistas, skills, or even Worldview World also gives you a lot of experience. So apart from vistas and hearts, there's also skill points spread out through the map, and that's actually something I'm curious. I'm not sure if you know or not, because there's a lot of stuff about Guild Wars 2 that I still don't know. But regarding skill points, because there's usually a set number of skill points spread out through each zone, and these are called skill challenges. Now sometimes you just have to go to a specific location and you'll get an option like commune with this place of power. Other times it's an NPC that's there and he will give you a potion or a meal or something like that, and that will grant you a skill point. And other times it's just beat the crap out of this NPC, and that will grant you a skill point. There's like different types of skill point events, and all of these will reward you skill points. Now what I'm curious about, Vex, is once you get to level 80,
Yep.
you still will not have these skill points, right? You have to hunt them down.
Yep.
Okay, but then again, I mean,
What?
you don't need all the skill points in the world unless you want to unlock every single skill you have. Because, I mean, there's just certain skills that maybe you don't want to unlock. Now, me personally, I'm a completionist, so whatever character I create, I will eventually unlock every single skill, and that will require you to actually run around through the map and explore.
I should point out something. Do you know what happens after level 80?
Nope.
You keep on leveling, and you keep getting skill points. Now do you know why?
Nope.
Because you use skill points to buy things from, like, you can buy things using skill points from a vendor, and you use them in the Mystic Forge to make legendary weapons, and that's why you continue doing skill points even after 80.
Oh, that's interesting. I was actually not aware of that. So there's another reason for you guys to go off hunting for more skill points. And also, there's a reason for you not to waste your skill points and think like, oh, this skill looks like fun, even though I'll probably never use it.
So if you want to, min-max or whatever, just
Exactly.
go through the skill tree, decide what you want, only get that.
and only get what you want, and then eventually when you get to level 80 you'll be able to create legendary weapons, you said?
Well, it's the whatchamacallit, ingredients. You have to buy the ingredients to then make the
And
weapons.
the ingredients will cost you skill points. But it's
Yeah.
not a huge problem because, like Vex said, you continue to level up after you get to level 80 and get skill points. I mean, your level will not increase, but when you level up, you will still get 1 skill point. I assume it's 1 skill point, right?
Yeah, it's 1 skill point, and it's
Okay.
not the same amount of experience you need to get from 79 to 80. It's a decent amount lower than that, but I'm not sure how.
It's lower
compare-
than from 79 to 80. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. It's kind of... There's actually something that I've noticed is that there's not a lot of grinding involved most of the time. Or
It
am I
depends
wrong?
what you want to do.
Yeah, it depends what you want to do. I mean, if you want to complete every single zone, that in itself can be considered grinding.
Yeah,
You're grinding through zones, hunting down vistas, and
especially for the
whatever.
hearts, because then you have to kill all these different things to get it.
Exactly. Now, something else that we haven't talked about is dynamic events. I just mentioned it briefly, but dynamic events is actually something that keeps the game really interesting, in my opinion. And that is, you're out in your zone, just doing your hearts or hunting vistas or whatever, and close to you something might happen, like centaurs might attack a city, and you have to defend it, or the city might be attacking a centaur camp, and you have to help them. And this is just stuff that randomly happens while you're questing. And I think that is a really good thing to kind of break the leveling monotony. And it usually brings large amounts of player together. And the advantage of this is that you had other MMOs like Rift, I think is the one that really tried doing something like this, where randomly rifts would appear throughout the world and you would get placed into a group. But if that group was already full, you wouldn't be placed into a group. You would have to try and form a group with other people. And then there could be like a group with 20 people and another group with 3 people. And obviously the group with 3 people is going to get crushed mercilessly because that event is tuned to the amount of persons that are in the zone in that area. Guild Wars 2 is very similar. The thing is, there's no grouping. There doesn't have to be grouping. If you are helping, that's it. You're contributing to the event. Everybody that's in the event is that is participating will get rewarded XP and XP and karma. Karma is another resource. It's almost like badges of justice in World of Warcraft. You will be rewarded XP and karma based on your performance, and that's a very important thing. Based on your performance. So it's not just because you're there. You have to be there and you have to be effective. So
Well-
it's not like you can just go to an event and not do anything and get rewarded for it. I mean, you will get like the bronze level reward, which will give you the least amount of experience, gold, and karma. But if you actually participate properly, you can get gold, the gold evaluation for the event, and you will actually gain more experience and more karma and more gold. But you were going to say, Vex?
Well, not to. I think you're picking up a bit much. You can quite easily just kill a few mobs, run away, and you'll still get gold achievement. It varies for the event and how many people are doing it, but you generally don't have to kill that much to do
Yeah,
it.
you don't have to kill that much to do it. But I mean, are you going to abandon an event that's midway through? Who does that?
You could, though, to save time. Say there's a lot of events going on. We'll go for an unrealistic number and say there was 10 going on at the same time. You could start at the first event, kill 5 mobs. With the next one, kill 5 mobs. Do the same for the next 8.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no guarantee that you're going to get gold for all those events. I mean, you might get silver for some, but yeah, I can see your point. You can kind of min-max and be a jerk about it and not participate all the way through, which I don't do. Do you?
No.
Oh,
Well,
there we go. But we're good, decent players. We're not like everyone else. But yeah, but basically the reward is usually based around your participation. Some events are not just about killing, mind you. There's some events that will involve you stealing raptor eggs, for instance. There's
Yes.
other events that will involve you utilizing a specific item. Like I actually had one event where, which was the event that kind of motivated me to make an engineer, because I was a guardian and I was doing this one event where they gave me a rifle. I was like, oh, rifles are fun. I want to be an engineer.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Some of those custom item events can be very tedious at times. So
Yeah, some of them can be really tedious. Others can be fun. It all depends, because like everything in life, it depends on your particular taste. Because a lot of people also do not like losing control of the abilities they have for their character. Kind of like the raid in World of Warcraft. What was it called? The Vault. Not the Vault. It was actually the best raid ever made in World of Warcraft, which was Ulduar. But the first boss involved everyone getting into tanks and rolling around in these big ass tanks shooting stuff. A lot of players didn't actually like that because you don't have control of your usual character skills. You have to adapt to a whole new set of skills. And this kind of stuff happens a lot in Guild Wars 2. There's a lot of events, as well as even a lot of your main storyline quests that will involve you having to pick up a specific item, getting a different action set, and so forth. So,
well, you say a lot, but it's a small amount, but it happens.
I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to be a completionist, it happens a lot.
I don't know. I'd say like 5% of the time.
No.
Yes.
Trust me. If you're going to be completing zones, there's going to be a lot of it. I would say
Same
upwards
5%.
of 15 to 20% of the times there's going to be skills and quests and events that will require you to use, like, I don't know, an artillery piece or a specific rifle that has a different set of skills, or a cattle prod, or there's all kinds of weird stuff. You guys think, oh, he's just saying cattle prod for fun. No, there's cattle prods in this game. Hell, there's zones where you can just pick up a rock and throw a rock. Just throw a rock at someone. There are zones where you can pick up a tuft of hair and throw it at an enemy and it binds him or something. There's all kinds of weird stuff spread out through the world, trust me.
Thieves do that a lot, actually.
Do I what?
Thieves do that a lot.
Yeah, what I like to do usually is to steal warrior banners. Because when warriors lay down a banner, you can go and pick it up and you get a different set of skills. And I like the banners because they have a skill that lets you run faster. So when I see a warrior lay down a banner, I go there, I steal his banner and run away. Because I can run faster for a while with this banner. So that's
You're
a
a
lot of
bad
fun.
man.
Yeah, I know, that's me. Anyways, now let's get a little bit into the storyline that we've been kind of
Do
taunting.
you not want
that
to talk about the bigger events?
Oh, I haven't actually done the bigger events, so you go ahead and you talk about the bigger events.
Well, I'll start off with the smaller ones. There's group events where you have to fight a big boss, and occasionally there'll be a chest at the end of it. There's quite a fun one where the boss character turns everyone around them into a random animal. You can be like a crocodile or a moa and stuff like that, and you get their skill abilities. So that's an interesting event. And then you move on to the bigger ones, which is the three dragons. Tequatl, Shatterer, and Jormag's Claw.
There's actually a dragon called Shatra.
Shatterer,
Ah, Shatterer. Okay.
yes, as in pretty
Scared me.
things.
Scared me for a second there, a dragon called Shatra.
But unfortunately, while very epic, your first few times round, it gets very monotonous. It's basically stand there and shoot them in the face. You're not in much danger unless you're melee. But
So the game is only challenging if you're melee, is what you're saying.
for those events, yes.
I guess, though, there's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, the game is still relatively new, and the thing that happened with this game, I feel, is that a lot of people kind of rushed to endgame, and then they
Yeah.
were like, oh, there's nothing to do. You know, when there's so much fun to be had in between.
But that's what people just like to do on MMOs. Must get to first 80.
Yeah, me personally, I don't even have a level 80 character, and that's not very useful. It's because I'm just having so much fun in the lower levels that I don't feel the need to power level myself. Because it's fairly easy to power level yourself. I mean, just do whatever you got to do to get your main storyline and keep on going that way, or just go and spam the world versus world battleground, so to speak.
Don't do vistas.
Yeah, don't do vistas. Vistas will... I mean, if you're min-maxing, don't do vistas. But honestly, I would say do vistas. Vistas are a lot of fun. Figuring out where the vista is in itself, it's kind of a cool mini-game. I mean, that's probably why I don't have any character past 44. It's because I like hunting down vistas, I like hunting down skills, I like doing dynamic events and whatnot. I like doing all these little things that there are to do in between level 80, because I already know that once you get to level 80, I mean, there's nothing particularly special to do apart from these amazing events that you're talking about and the instances. But yeah, those are like the big things. So the end game of Guild Wars 2, so to speak, is basically those 3 events that you mentioned.
Not quite. Twaddle is around about level 60 based. I'll take you there when you hit it. Actually, all of them are around level 60. I think Shatra's 70 or 80.
So, but I mean, they are like the end game. They're like the end bosses, the big things that you got to look forward to when you reach max level. Or am I wrong?
Only for the loot.
So loot-wise, they are the end game.
And dungeons, yes.
And the dungeons, yeah. We also have dungeons. We're gonna be talking about dungeons a little bit when we get to Destiny's Edge. But now let's talk a little bit about the storyline then. So. Okay. The storyline, basically what happens with the storyline is that when you're creating your character, you're going to answer a couple of questions. Now, bear in mind, I never finished the storyline here, but Vex has, or haven't you? Have you finished the storyline on your level 80 character?
Except for about 3 missions.
What'd you say? I'm sorry?
Except for about the last 3 missions.
Okay, so you're missing like 3 missions to finish your character's storyline. Okay. And every character will get a storyline, and that is the one quest that I told you guys about. There's only usually one quest active in your quest tracker, so to speak, and that is your storyline quest. The rest of the game, it pretty much gives you freedom to do whatever you want. So you're not locked into a certain area, you're not locked into a certain zone. It's like, I'm bored of this zone, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to another zone that's appropriate to my level.
You're
you can do that.
Into PvE.
What?
Not even locked into doing PvE.
Yeah, you can also go and level at world versus world if that's something you want to do, which there's also a lot of fun to be had there. We're going to be addressing world versus world in a bit as well. But there's a lot of ways for you to experience. So basically what they did with Guild Wars 2 is they said, look, we don't want players to be tracking down like 100 quests at a time. They get one quest, which is their main storyline quest, and apart from that, it's just exploration, doing hearts, doing vistas, skills, world versus world, whatever you want to do, basically. Which is something that I really appreciate, because sometimes it would be like, in other MMOs, it's like, oh, I have to go through this area again. When you're leveling, you know, like doing an alt or something, oh, I have to go through this area again and do these things again. That will also eventually happen after you do a certain number of playthroughs in Guild Wars 2. Don't get me wrong, that's also going to happen. But I mean, you have a lot more leeway and freedom in what you can or can't do. What do you think about that?
I agree.
But anyways, when you are creating your character, you will the game will ask you a certain set of questions like when dealing with problems, I use my ferocity, dignity, or what's the other one? Charm, in order to overcome it. I created a time machine, or my sister was kidnapped. You know, there's a whole bunch of questions like that, which will kind of formulate a storyline for your character. And that's actually a good thing, because let's say you could have 2 human warriors and they could have different main storylines. Now, I'm not sure they're going to be like terribly different. I think they're going to be slightly different. Am I right?
Yeah. The point will be different where you make there's like a specific quest that will deal with your choice. And other than that, it'll probably be somewhat similar.
Yeah, they're similar, but they're still different, basically. So each one can get a unique storyline. I'm not exactly sure how many variations of storylines there is for each race class combination, but I'm pretty sure there's quite a few, because there's like, what, 5 questions that you answer?
Well, I think I believe there's 3 questions, but each question has multiple choice of a minimum of 3, I think. Some get up to like choices. 5.
Yeah, there's basically several choices that you can make at the creation screen, which will actually tailor the story to fit whatever you answer those questions with. And a part of that, all races will get a completely different storyline. Like, for instance, a Sylvari warrior will have a storyline that's completely different to the human warrior. That's definitely completely different. Like, two human warriors can have two different stories, but they will be somewhat similar in some aspects, and maybe even in the same questing instances that I mentioned earlier. But different races will have vastly different storylines as well as objectives and like the plot behind their story, I believe.
The profession doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, the profession doesn't matter at all. It's more about the race and the choices that you've made. So that is your main storyline. And now the thing that I'm actually curious about the storyline, and that you will be able to maybe answer me better, is at a certain point, all storylines will have to make a choice of a three faction. Like, this is not a spoiler. Like, all classes at a certain point in their main quest will have to choose between three factions. Now, what I'm curious is, does the questions that you answer only affect your quest up until that point, and from that point on there's only three quests, or do your choices like remain throughout the entirety of your storyline?
It's just before that point. That's the only time your answers seem to matter.
So after that point, you're kind of the questions that you're asked at the start of the game kind of stop mattering.
Funnily enough, you answer three questions, and then you have to choose between three. When that ends, you choose between three factions, and then that story goes on.
So basically, at the end, there's only going to be like three stories, so to speak. No, because it will differ according to race as well.
I don't.
I think it will differ according to race, because usually there's those different elements in each of the three factions.
Yes, I think that's only up until you actually join your faction, then you get a specific person to help you through it.
Yeah.
Like, you join the Order of Whispers, you got that kind of drunken char guy. When you join the Derman Priory, you get a Silvari, and when you join what's the other one? The Vigil.
The other one's the Vigil. You get a human, the human warrior. Oh, it's a Norn, yeah.
And
so
I think it's the same for every race after that.
Okay, so basically it will actually only affect, I would say, like your 21st levels, 31st levels.
I think it's 30 or 20.
I think it's 30.
Yeah.
I'm almost sure it's 30. So
actually, yeah.
Your answers will kind of custom tailor your story up until level 30. And past level 30, it's going to be, if not the same, it's going to be a very similar experience according to the faction that you will choose at that point. However, there's also another story that starts to unfold at level 30, which is the story of Destiny's Edge, which is a specific guild. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers here, but there is usually one character that is going to be accompanying you throughout your storyline through most of the way, and that character is usually part of Destiny's Edge, and you will experience the story of Destiny's Edge throughout the instances themselves, because there's instances just like dungeons in other MMOs. There's dungeons in Guild Wars 2 as well, and those dungeons are usually, when in story mode, those dungeons will tell the story of Destiny's Edge, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right?
Yes, that's story mode dungeons. Just to go on what someone you said a little bit earlier, the member of Destiny's Edge that accompanies you, I think I might be wrong, it's only for the first 30 levels as well, and it'll always be the member of Destiny Edge that is your race.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying as well, right. Is that they will only accompany you until you get to that point where you join one of the three factions, the Order of Whispers, the Vigil, or the other ones, the Derman Priory.
I thought you said they accompany through the whole story.
No, once you get to that point, you get the other character, which I assume the other character from the faction will then accompany you throughout the story, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm sorry if this seems a little bit complicated, but let's try to demystify. There's a main storyline, which will last like from your level 1 up until level 30, and those are based around your choices that you made when you created your character. After that, your main storyline will then evolve into one of the three storylines for each of the three factions: Vigil, Order of Whispers, or Derman Priory. And each of these has a different play style and will give you completely different style of missions. I've done so far the Vigil and the Order of Whispers. Order of Whispers are more about stealth, deceiving, using disguises, and it's actually like that. You will actually like get disguises and go into missions where you are trying to talk your way through stuff and not just fighting everything. But usually there will eventually be combat regardless of wherever you go. Derman Priory is more about resolving problems with your intelligence, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Science.
Yeah, it's all about science and creating devices and whatnot. And the Vigil is usually what I tend to like because it's straight up in your face, kill your face.
Hit it with the sword.
Exactly. Hit it with a sword, hit it with a stick, beat it up, and kill it. So, yeah, so your main storyline will evolve up until level 30, usually taking into account the choices you made, and after that, you will have to pick one of three factions, and that will then diverge into three additional stories.
Then we get into spoiler territory.
And then we get into spoiler territory, so we're not going to get into that.
May I say one thing about the personal story?
Go.
It can be incredibly brutally unfair sometimes.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
During one of the Sylvari missions, you have to go to a river, and basically there's roughly, I don't know, there's like 6 opponents that appear, and the NPCs who accompany you can be quite useless. So it's 6v3, and and basically they deal a lot of damage. Say it takes around about a fifth of your health in one hit, and you're on this small bit of ground. So if you fall into the water, as you might not know, if you're on the surface of the water, you can't even attack. So these guys are hitting you. If you dodge into the water, you suddenly lose your abilities, and if you go under the water, then you have your...
You have a different set of abilities.
Yeah, your water abilities, and they tend to suck a bit.
That's actually funny. I actually had a couple of quests. I actually had a specific quest at level 30-something, which was also kind of brutally unfair, which was... Basically, I was doing this quest. I had to save this NPC, and when I got there, there was this big cannon, which would one-shot kill me.
Oh.
And I was appropriate level for that quest. Like it said, level 32 or something like that, and I was level 32, and that cannon would just one-shot me, and I was like, "Fuck this!"
That's the Order of Whispers quest, isn't it? Oh, a cannon. It was terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some quests which are... I actually think it's a good thing that it's challenging and that it's not afraid to kill you, because a lot of games these days hold your hand too much.
Well,
I like it when a game kind of just tells you, look, get the skills to pay the bills or die.
Like I'll probably say a little bit later, is there's a difference between brutally unfair and challenging.
Okay, we will see about that eventually, but yeah, those are the two storylines that you're going to get throughout your main storyline, and then there's also Destiny's Edge, which you'll get to experience through dungeons.